Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Kautz, Mayor of Burnsville, Minnesota, and President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It is my great pleasure to recognize the members who are on the dais. Let's see who all we have on the dais. We have the Mayor of the great city of Chicago, and I'll be introducing him later, Rahm Emanuel. Our host mayor, Stephanie Rollins Blake. And of course, he's the mayor, but the governor of Maryland. Our CEO, Tom Cochrane. And we have Mr. Delaney from Siemens. The mayor of the great city of New Orleans, Mitch Landrieu. And we also have the Reverend who is going to give our invocation, and he is with us also. And I will introduce the gentleman who will be singing the national anthem later on. So, to officially open the meeting, please stand for the presentation of the colors by the City of Baltimore Police and Fire Color Guard, and remain standing, please. The national anthem will now be sung by Reverend Micelle E. Miller.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home
Somebody got us all here, way down deep in our hearts. The color guard is going to stay because we're going to have the invocation right now, given by Bishop Walter S. Thomas, Sr. from the New Psalmist Baptist Church. Bishop.
Would you reach around and hold hands with the person standing close to you? Oh God, today we gather under the banner of our urban cities, with both the burdens and the dreams that dominate the thinking of those who live in and those who lead our cities. In these most confusing of times, we ask for guidance and vision that will chart a course through the difficult and constraining forces that challenge every effort and seek to thwart every plan. We pray today for optimism that will open the door of vision to new and amazing possibilities. We pray for structural and policy vision that will lift communities out of the muck of apathy and return their faith and confidence in all levels of leadership. Now, God, stand with our mayor and our city as the host of this great conference, and all who give leadership to it and to this cause, that they may facilitate the breakthroughs that are needed for all who are here and all who are represented by those who attend. We ask all of this in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus, and together we say, Amen.
It is impossible for the nation's mayors to gather without acknowledging the extraordinary challenges that colleagues across the country are facing following some of this nation's most devastating natural disasters. Among the cities affected is my neighbor, Minneapolis. We'll now observe a moment of silence in recognition of the communities affected by the spate of recent disasters, their residents who were killed and injured, and the tens of thousands more who lost their homes and possession. Thank you. Please be seated. It is now my great honor and privilege to introduce our host, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake. Mayor, you have done a wonderful job in welcoming us to such a great American city. Please join me in thanking Mayor Rawlings Blake for hosting America's Mayors.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Mayor Kautz. As a woman mayor, your leadership of this organization makes me particularly proud, and I promised you that Baltimore would host a fantastic meeting for you, and we're not done yet. I want to thank our fire and police, color guard. I want to thank Reverend Miller. I know he had to leave, but we wanted to hear one more song from him. I also want to thank Bishop Thomas for being here with us this morning. And welcome, 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 welcome to Baltimore. It is good to see everyone so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning, or at least faking it. I hope last evening's events, particularly the one in Little Italy, gave you a taste and feel for the rich history and culture of my beloved hometown. The bocce courts also served another purpose last night, and that was to humble you. Baltimore's bocce courts paint a bucolic picture, but they're also a place where fortunes have been lost and reputations have been made. They're not for the weak of heart, so I hope you enjoyed it. They are quintessential Baltimore. So last year when Baltimore was announced as the host city for the annual meeting, I became excited for the opportunity to show the leaders of our nation all of the things that I love about my hometown: our history, our food, our culture, our Renaissance, and our heart. I wanted you to see the things that have inspired great men and great women for hundreds of years, and the things that inspire me each and every day. Right now is a special time for our city. We are beginning a very exciting summer. We are making preparations to celebrate our role in protecting our nation in the War of 1812. And we're looking forward to hosting our first ever Baltimore Grand Prix on Labor Day weekend. You're all welcome to come back. It is a great time to be in Baltimore, and I am honored to share my city with you this weekend. I also want to thank my friend, Governor O'Malley, who is with us today. I think he's getting wistful and misses being a part of this organization. I also want to thank Tom Cochran, Mayor Emanuel, and Daryl Delaney, the CEO of this weekend's title sponsor, Siemens. Thank you again, each and every one of you, for coming here. I look forward to sharing ideas with you about making our city and our country better, safer, and stronger. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a former member of this organization and the president. You're the president of the Democratic Governors Association. He has so many titles, I forget. My friend and friend to many of you, our governor, Martin O'Malley.
Thanks, Robert. How you doing, Mayor? Good to see you. Hey, thanks very, very much. Sit. Thank you all. That's very, very kind of you. My goodness, it is great to be with friends. And I am very, very envious of the job you have and the job that you get to do. To Elizabeth Coates and the great job you've done as the president and incoming president, Mayor Villaraigosa, Mayor Nutter, Mayor Landrieu, newly elected Mayor Emanuel. There's no more hopeful coin in the realm, is there, than a freshly minted new mayor. You've got all the hope. That mountain of problems hasn't come crashing down on you yet. People have cast that very personal vote, and they expect you to make the whole world perfect within the next few months. But it is great to be with all of you, and I'm going to do you a huge favor and get you back on schedule. Welcome to the city of Baltimore in the state of Maryland, the original land of the free and the home of the brave. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you and being able to talk at some greater length one-on-one with you tonight out at Fort McHenry. I understand that the mayor has strong-armed O'Malley's March, my band, to come out of retirement. There's a man here from the Washington Post doing a whole story on the resurgence of the band. This is so dull is the life of governors that bands make front-page news when they come out of retirement. But it really is great to be with all of you. And Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, thank you for making the people of our city so very, very proud in hosting this event. Our people have always had a tremendous love for their mayors and appreciation for their mayors. In fact, in 1814, when Washington had been burned to the ground and the British general and his navy were coming up on Baltimore, he vowed this, true story. He said, "I'm going to dine in Baltimore," because even then we had good restaurants. "And then I'm going to burn Baltimore to the ground." Well, the people of Baltimore had something different planned. They took out that general in the first engagement, and the people of our city, black and white, with their mayor, dug trenches across what is current-day Patterson Park. We had invested our own dollars out there in Fort McHenry, And without a federal government to back us up, we held the day. 60% of us were immigrants, hadn't even been born in the United States. 1 out of 5 of us were black citizens, slave and free, in a still very imperfect country. So the place that you will visit tonight, Fort McHenry, is frankly my favorite place in the entire state. And my kids love it too. And I think you'll sense the spirit of this place, that however overwhelming the odds are, always finds an ability to believe in itself, to believe in its neighbors, to believe that tomorrow can be better than today if we choose to make it so. And we're very, very fortunate that we have currently serving us Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, who with absolutely no drama, no hyperbole, goes to work every day. She's like the Cal Ripken of mayors. She plays hurt. She plays every day, though. She gets up to bat, and she does what she must to move our city forward in really difficult times. The progress that we've been able to make, that she has been able to make, driving homicides down to record lows that we've never seen, student achievement at highs that we have never seen, a city population that used to be dropping like a rock has now stabilized, and we look forward to that time when she starts actually growing again, because Baltimore's growth challenge is really Maryland's great hope as well. We need our city to grow if our state's going to grow in ways that are smart, green, and growing. I'm happy to report to you on a different score that at the Democratic Governors Association, we now have enough members to form a U.S. Conference of Mayors caucus of the Democratic Governors Association. So, Daniel Malloy, right? And Mayor Hickenlooper in Colorado, Tennessee has them. No sooner had this happened than Tom Cochran asked all of us for dues for this organization. Jerry Brown, who was former everything. But no job did he appreciate more than mayor. And I can say that I share that as well. Ed Rendell once said that if ever in the middle of the night somebody kicked in the door of his bedroom, pounced on him, put a flashlight in his face, and demanded to know, "Who are you?" he would look up and say, "I'm Ed Rendell, mayor of Philadelphia." And once a mayor, always a mayor. I had intended to go for about 40 minutes in welcoming you here, but I'm not going to do that. I have a top 10 David Letterman list of the differences between being mayor and being governor, and I'm not going to be able to go through those. I want to give to you, though, my favorite one. My favorite differences between being mayor and being governor is this. When you're mayor, you spend a lot of time very patiently listening to very poor people ask you for life and death important things for which they are willing to work. When you're governor, you spend an inordinate amount of time listening to really, really rich people ask you for really, really unreasonable things for which they're not even willing to pay. You know, I'm fond of, I don't care, I'm not running for re-election, I'm term limited. I have a couple of great mayor stories. I'll have to share the other ones with you tonight, but one of my favorite ones is the mayor whose numbers are dipping, his poll numbers are going down. People have voted for him, but they think he forgot them because he went off there to the State House. And so they say, look, we've got to do some of those town hall meetings that you were so very good at when you were mayor. You got to get out there. You know what, this is your bread and butter, right? You set up the microphones both sides of the auditorium. You go there. People can ask say whatever they want, give a speech, ask as many questions as they want, but it all has to be within 2 minutes. So the governor says, all right, I'll go out, we'll start doing this. So at the very first meeting, he shows up, and a big-boned woman takes that first chair right next to the microphone. So he's explaining the rules. Look, you can ask as many questions as you want, you can give a speech if you like, but it all has to be within 2 minutes. And this woman says to the microphone, I understand the rules and I have a question. He says, yes, madam, your question. She says, I have 3 of them. He says, well, madam, they have to be within 2 minutes. I know they have to be within 2 minutes. Question number 1. There's a park down the street from my house. There are so many needles and broken bottles and broken swing sets. Kids can't even play there. I call again and again and again. Nobody calls. Nothing ever happens. Second question, there's a broken curb right in front of my house. I have twisted my knee, my ankle, and every other part of my body on that broken curb. I've called again, and again, and no one comes. Third question, there's a dead tree in front of my house. It's on the city side. Don't tell me it's not. I've called and called and called, and nobody ever comes. And Governor, I want to know what you're doing about it. He said, well, madam, I'm afraid your questions would be better directed to your mayor. Woman says, I know that, but I didn't want to go that high at first. I've got another really good one about Mare, the hunting dog on the Eastern Shore, but I'm not going to share that with you. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait till tonight. But look, I do welcome you here, and I want to leave you with this one very, very serious thought, and it is this: our country is in a crisis right now. It is not a crisis primarily of finances, though we have financial challenges. It is not primarily in economic challenges, though we certainly have our economic challenges. It is a challenge of belief, a belief that our government can actually work, that together we can make it work. And while it is not the solution to every problem we face, it is the best platform we have to come together as a people and make a new and a better tomorrow for our children and our children's children. I was struck as I was campaigning last year when I would ask the question, how many of you firmly believe that you've enjoyed a better quality of life than your parents and grandparents? Virtually every hand would go up. Then I'd ask, how many of you believe just as firmly that your children and your children's children will enjoy a better quality of life? Hardly any hands go up. That's the real crisis we face. It's the fear of fear itself. And with 80% of our economy coming from metropolitan areas, with so many of America's citizens looking to you as mayors, as one of their two most personal votes, you have a critical role to play in getting us over this fear that somehow tomorrow can't be better. Performance measurement, your willingness to be out there every day, to talk openly and honestly to people about the reality we face, the budget realities we face, the resources we have, and the ability that we have to actually make our government work, to be more effective, to show people that, in fact, their tax dollars are not wasted, that there are some things that we can only do together: reducing violent crime, improving our public schools, making the transition to a cleaner, greener, better economy where opportunities expanding again and jobs are growing. These are things that fall very, very directly on your shoulders, along with the most acute challenges we have in the gap between what's possible and the dollars that we have to achieve them. But leadership's an important thing. And in no office in America is that alchemy, that chemistry, more critically important than in the office of mayor. You wield that lightning. You make people believe, notwithstanding the odds, that it's possible, that they can do it. If they believe in themselves, if they believe in one another, and they believe in what we can do together to make a new tomorrow. You all do a very, very important job. I'm grateful for you. And I'm also very grateful that you've come to our city. Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, thank you for bringing the most important office holders in America to the greatest city in America. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you. I got more jokes. I got more mayor and governor jokes.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Mayor Rawlings Blake. Let me recognize our Vice President, Mayor of Los Angeles, Villaraigosa. And because you weren't here when we did the introductions earlier, and also our second Vice President, Mayor Nutter of Philadelphia. It's my great pleasure to also recognize and thank the sponsors of the U.S. Conference of Mayors' 79th annual meeting. Our title sponsor, Siemens, America's Natural Gas Alliance, ENGA, Philips, Microsoft, IBM, American Beverage Association, Honeywell, HDR, ABM Inc., Motorola, and MWH. Let's give them all a round of applause. And Donna Estacio, thank you. You're the managing director from American Airlines, the conference's official airline for the meeting. Donna, please stand so we can thank you appropriately. Donna, there you are. Thank you, American Airlines, for your support. I'm now pleased and honored to introduce the title sponsor of our 79th Annual Conference of Mayors, Mr. Darrell Delaney, Chief Executive Officer of Siemens Industry, Inc. Mr. Delaney oversees all business activity of the company's industry sector in the U.S. Mr. Delaney is a board member of the Siemens Foundation, which provides more than $7 million annually in financial support towards science, technology, engineering, and math education initiatives. Now, I present to you Mr. Darrell Delaney.
Well, thank you, Mayor Kautz. I appreciate that. I thought today I would open with a song, but I'm afraid that I would pale in comparison to what we heard earlier. But I thought also I'm really impressed that the dedication of this group that shows up here for this convention over the weekend when the U.S. Open is so close by. But I guess it's just us corporate guys that play golf. Of course, when we're not asking for things we don't want to pay for, the governor. You know, there's no question that this is an extraordinary and challenging time to be a mayor of a U.S. city. You know, on the one hand, city budgets are as tight as they've ever been. The global recession has cut off much of your tax base, and federal and state budget cuts aren't making anything any easier. And unlike the federal government, you don't have the luxury of passing a budget with a deficit, pushing off the harder decisions perhaps to an easier time. On the other hand, cities have never been in more need of investments in their futures. There are a lot of reasons for that. Across the country, infrastructure is degraded and getting worse. And that's a story that we all know is already several decades old. We're already seeing a huge influx of people moving into urban centers, forcing cities to accommodate a lot more people than their infrastructure was really built to support. That too is a problem that's getting worse. On a global scale, demographers believe that by 2050, 6.2 billion people will live in cities, nearly as many as all the people that are alive in the world today. Already, 84% of U.S. residents live in metropolitan areas, and that number too is expected to grow. As that happens, infrastructure that even now is unsustainable will come to its breaking point. So if cities can't make investments in new infrastructure to cope with these issues, you and the future mayors of America are going to find themselves dealing with really unacceptable consequences. It'll mean brownouts and blackouts as electricity demand runs up against an antiquated grid. It will mean a surge in carbon emissions, and at a time when our planet needs us to reduce them. It will mean water shortages, overcrowded emergency rooms, and an overcrowded healthcare system. You know, those are big issues. But it's not just about quality of life. It's about the quality of local economies. Cities with infrastructure and aging infrastructure are going to find themselves at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to attracting new jobs and new businesses. So it's no question that cities are facing tremendous challenges right now. And it's no question that nobody understands that better than you. A couple of years ago, Siemens did a survey with the Conference of Mayors that asked 140 cities to describe the biggest issues they were facing. About 60% identified the lack of funding to meet infrastructure needs as a serious challenge. And just yesterday, we announced the results of another survey with the conference, this time on your priorities for clean energy solutions. Again, you identified financial constraints as the most significant challenge to improving energy efficiency and conservation and developing new renewable energy supplies. But knowing this reality and being able to confront it are two very different things. There isn't a mayor in this room who doesn't appreciate the sheer magnitude of the challenges his or her city faces over the coming generation. The question isn't what is about to happen, it's what to do about it. Because at the same time that cities need to be making larger investments in their futures, larger than ever before, many, if not most, are cash-strapped as they've ever been. Sounds like an insurmountable problem. But at Siemens, we don't believe it is. We have a strong sense of how cities can overcome these challenges, that understanding grows out of a very long history working with cities. We're 164 years old and have operations in 190 countries. We're the company that laid the first transatlantic cable. We invented the first electric train. We invented the first traffic light. We put the first electric lights into cities. We're number one in the US in the light rail market, for example. We build the most efficient gas turbines in the world. We're a leader in helping transport electricity across long distances in an environmentally friendly way. We're a worldwide leader in smart buildings and smart grid technologies. And we've installed roughly 1/3 of all hospital imaging equipment in the world. We've geared our business around megatrends that we believe will define the next generation and the next century, from urbanization to climate change, from aging populations to infrastructure. We've been focusing our R&D and our service on the areas of greatest need and greatest opportunity for cities around the world. Our business has long been focused on 3 sectors: energy, industry, and healthcare. This year, we've added a 4th area of global focus: infrastructure and cities. That's because we recognize that the very customers who most needed these products and services, the cities you represent, were the least able to make the upfront investments they needed. I need to grab a bit of water. Us corporate guys, we do go on. So we've applied our innovation to help cities become more competitive from an infrastructure standpoint, and we figured out ways to help them pay for it. One such concept, of course, is, so many of you have heard of it, we've called performance contracting. But those of you that aren't familiar, let me give you an example. In 2009, the city of Houston decided it wanted to dramatically reduce its energy consumption, both to reduce carbon emission and, of course, to save money. The city's transportation department began that effort with a focus on the city's traffic light system. So we turned to our engineers and asked them to tell us how much money the city of Houston would save if we replaced every single one of their traffic lights with LEDs. The answer was that using LEDs would reduce energy costs by $19.5 million because of their longevity, efficiency, and reduced operating costs. The total net savings of the project would be more than $7 million for the city of Houston the first decade, but the upfront investment needed would be $12.4 million. Well, those are savings that any city would be eager to realize, but the $12.4 million upfront investment, of course, was daunting for Houston, as it would be for a lot of you. So here's how we helped. We told Houston they wouldn't have to pay a penny of their upfront investment. Siemens would cover it. We'd make the initial investment, and the city would pay us back out of the savings realized. But on top of that, we contractually guaranteed the savings and committed to paying for any shortfall. We signed a 30-year service agreement with the city, ensuring that Siemens would always be there for the maintenance and operation wherever and whenever needed. In a single year, we modernized the city's nearly 2,400 traffic lights and pedestrian signals. We replaced more than 40,000 incandescent light bulbs with LEDs, and we saved the city nearly 9.8 million kilowatt hours of electricity. We're also working with Houston on a modernization of 55 of their municipal buildings under the same kind of agreement. When it's completed, Houston will emit 8.4 million fewer pounds of CO2 into the atmosphere than they do today. And performance contracting is just one way to finance a city's energy efficiency and upgrade infrastructure. There are other ways to structure a partnership, that allow a city to make critical investments even when they're low on capital. The point is, as challenging as these times are, the answers to the problems that cities face are largely here. The technology is largely here, and methods of getting this done, even without upfront capital, have been developed and put to work successfully. All of this is to say that while we understand that your budgets are constrained, we believe your choices don't have to be. We believe the future prosperity of this country depends on the present success of our cities. And we trust your leadership, which we need today more than ever before. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney, for your ongoing support of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Let me just tell you a little bit about this report that Mr. Delaney referenced. Yesterday, we released a new survey that he referenced. This is the Clean Energy Solutions for America's Cities. Let me just give you a small little snippet of that background. The participation in this survey was unprecedented. 39600 cities in every state, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico represented. And this represents about 74 million people. To take a picture of how cities are deploying clean energy technology and other energy priorities, we ask mayors to tell us what technologies are most promising for curbing energy use and carbon emission. That is the slide that you're seeing in the screen behind me right now. LED light and other efficient lighting leads, all technologies, followed by low energy building and photovoltaic. The survey also tells us that most cities, 75%, expect their deployment of new energy technologies to increase over the next 5 years. We also found that economic benefits, including job creation, business development, building a greener economy, were driving your energy strategies. After the federal government at 71%, it was the private sector at 59% that was cited as the most important partner in deploying new energy technologies. And when asked to evaluate key policy considerations, the top responses were about our Energy Block Grant program. In moving forward with clean energy solutions, 87% of cities, the top response agreed that additional energy block grant funds are needed. Mayors, the full survey results are on your chair. This is another example of our partnership with Siemens. So again, thank you, Mr. Delaney. And now let me call Tom Cochran to introduce a video.
This is the time at our annual meetings where we call on our current president to give her report. We pay homage to her. Elizabeth Kautz has served us really for more than a year after Mayor Nichols, as you know, was defeated. So when he was defeated in November of 2009, she was sort of my president by Thanksgiving, if you know what I mean. But before that, she worked hard inside this organization. And I remember many, many years ago, I went to the Women's Caucus. Back then, they really hurt me, but they like me now. And this young mayor came up to me and said, I just want to be involved. I want to be involved in the organization. Elizabeth Kautz she earned being president. She served as our membership chair. She helped streamline that effort, and Mayor Wallace doing such a great job. She has gone throughout Europe, spreading the green issues all over those countries. And now we have the European mayors endorsing what we're doing with our climate protection agreement, they now have a covenant agreement because of her work. In addition, she brought mayors into the city of Washington to fight hard for CDBG and continues to fight hard with CDBG. And Don Board here is from the National League of Cities and the counties, and we're all working together. So she is not term limited. This is not goodbye. She will be a past president soon, and Mayor Villaraigosa will leave us as our new president, and we know that together, as a small and medium-sized town, working with the big cities of this nation, the Conference of Mayors is forever strong. Thank you, Elizabeth Couch, our 68th president of the United States Conference of Mayors.
Burnsville Mayor Elizabeth Couch represents the best ideals of the United States Conference of Mayors. Since the day that she joined this conference, and as chair of our membership committee, she launched the campaign that continues even today to involve all mayors throughout our nation. She has been a passionate advocate for what we stand for, what we fight for, and what we live for. Recently, we got together to talk one-on-one about her accomplishments as president of the United States Conference of Mayors. Well, Mayor, you've served 18 months as our president. That's longer than any in modern history. We've had tremendous progress on Capitol Hill, and we've also have had some challenges. CDBG, the energy block grants, of course, small business, and jobs, jobs, jobs. That was your Metro agenda.
When we go out, we see the faces of the people every day, in the grocery stores, in the coffee shops, and in our churches, and they tell us their stories. We are here to bring the voice of the people to Congress. We made good progress in Congress with the jobs bill for the Small Business Association, and then CDBG. Good morning. Thank you for being here with us. We're here as mayors representing our cities. We are nonpartisan. And we're here because we're disappointed about programs that are critical to cities, like the Community Development Block Grant that's being cut. We work together for the good of our people. They're the ones who elect us to office. They're the ones who are telling us, get the job done. Stay focused. Make sure you have a vision for the future. CDBG is critical to the people of our communities, and we will keep returning so that the voices of our people will be heard in Congress. That fight continues today, but we did great progress to take it down from 65% cut that was on the House bill to down to 16. So even though we experienced cuts in CDBG, we did something to make sure that we didn't destroy the program. But we did great work also with our Fortune 500 companies. We are pushing an agenda focused on economic development, infrastructure, energy security, and workforce training. All of these investments would primarily create jobs in the private sector. Bringing mayors and business leaders together to tell the story that it is between that partnership that will create jobs in our cities where our people truly need the jobs. So when I look at the effort, it was hard, it was tough. I was there with you in Washington almost every week, and making sure that the voice of the mayors throughout the country is heard.
Also want to mention arts. We had an incredible Arts Lobby Day, protecting the National Endowment, National Humanities. You have any thoughts about that?
Well, you know, I think this is one of the business sectors of our country that is not well publicized, and people aren't aware of arts and the economic driver that it is, because it drives the economy for our hospitality industry, it drives the economy for our restaurants, and then you look at the supply chain of businesses that benefit from it. And so I was just privileged to be a part of that experience, to push for arts at our nation's capital and to raise the awareness of what art means to each of our communities.
We just finished the largest ever meeting in Chicago, 300 people, designers, mayors, celebrating our 50th Institute, 25 years, and also paying homage to the great mayor of Chicago. What are your thoughts about that meeting and what we accomplished there?
Tom, what a great tribute to that whole effort, the Mayor's Institute on City Design. 25 years, and to see the output from that institute, that was remarkable. And this program will continue to move on, and it will make America beautiful and create more jobs for our people. Thank you very much. Kudos to the U.S. Conference of Mayors and our partners. And then you look at what Mayor Daley has done in his city, and you just go down Michigan Avenue and you look at the lakefront and everything that he has done there. He has been a great leader for us in terms of looking at city design. Also, when you design an area like we have here in Burnsville that's called the heart of the city.
And you took this idea to the Mayor's Institute of City Design.
Yes, in 2000, and it was there that I got great confidence.
Confidence means guts and political courage.
Yes, because what we received from the Mayor's Institute was the financial analysis. You know, you have to have long-term vision to understand the financial impact and the return on investment on all of that. And here it is.
Let's talk about the world. Let's talk about international. We've had many international activities. Of course, we went to China. China is very important for jobs, and we opened up the Shanghai exhibit with Ambassador Huntsman.
We also have some very important mayors from the United States who are with us today to help in this grand opening. And all we can say at this point is the American Pavilion is here to help our friends from China better understand who we are as Americans.
If you remember, when we were there, we had the first meeting with the Minister of Commerce, and it was all about the number of jobs that the Chinese government needs to produce and to have output. And they were inviting American companies to come so we can help to facilitate that. And when we were in Chengdu, the whole issue had to do with green jobs, energy efficiency, and all of that.
We're very proud of our climate protection agreement, and we notice that other countries are copying it. You've done work in Brussels and in Europe.
Our relationship with the mayors of Europe started in October and November of 2009 when I was there. The United States Conference of Mayors have been in the lead of climate protection initiative. We hope that the countries at COP15 will hear the voice of mayors as we roar like lions to let them know that we protect our planet. We share the same vision of how important regions and cities are in making sure that our planet is protected for the future. Imagine, if you will, the critical mass of mayors coming together and leading the way on this issue. Imagine, if you will, what we can do together in protecting our planet. In cities from Texas to Florida, local governments and citizens are already paying dearly for the BP spill. This is a major national disaster, and the American people demand that our response be equal to it. We do what is right for our cities, and so that boldness of America's mayors, the U.S. mayors, is heard in Europe and in Mexico and in China. And it's an effort that we need to continue, because through that also,
We have gained a lot of healthy relationships with the business community, not just here in the United States, but the businesses in Europe.
Well, let me also say on behalf of the offices and the staff to thank you for your internal building of our organization. And you've taught us that the strength of the organization sometimes might be the smaller and medium-sized cities. Have coming in the second largest city, Mayor Villaraigosa, and I know you wish him well.
Tom, yes, Mayor Villaraigosa is going to be a fine leader for our organization. And what we need to know is that at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and this is the thing that Mayor Daley has been so great in teaching all of us, we're all civil servants. And it isn't about the size of your city. It is what we do for our citizens. As I've always said, you have to show up, you have to contribute, and you have to deliver. And it's been a great honor and privilege to serve the U.S. Conference of Mayors as its president, and I will continue to serve.
Thank you all so much. This is bittersweet. Since the day I gave my inaugural address as conference president, I have stressed one overriding priority: jobs, and evidence in the video that you just saw. Today, I'm reporting to you on how we have done during my 1.5 years as your president in moving the needle forward on our priorities. One of the things that I do every year as mayors, all of us know that we give the state of the city. So for me, it is giving to you the state of the organization, the Conference of Mayors. You entrusted me with 1.5 years to lead, and we adopted an agenda. So for me, it's always important to let you know, how did we do? Every item we have been promoting through our Metro Agenda for America is designed to save and create jobs, especially in the private sector, the true engine of our economy. When we fought to save CDBG program, we had to show quantifiable proof as to why CDBG was so important to our communities. In a groundbreaking report, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, and the National Association of Counties calculated that CDBG created 147,000 jobs per year and generated $13.1 billion of GDP, or gross metropolitan product. Mayors, I thank you all. You helped us save CDBG. This was our agenda, and you came and you worked, and we moved the needle. You came to lobby in Washington, D.C. You held media events in your cities. You activated business community and service providers. And we ended up with a 16% reduction. But because of your efforts, we stopped the very real danger to us, which was 62.5% cut to CDBG. Our second priority has been the Energy Block Grant. Over 1,050 cities have signed our U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Protection Agreement and have worked hard to implement the Energy Block Grant that we created. The Energy Block Grant has helped cities leverage private investments and achieve the results our national leaders have been unable to accomplish. But mayors, we did it. When I spoke at the International Meeting on Climate Protection over the past 1.5 years, it was clear the world recognizes cities as leading the way in energy independence. This is why funding must be continued for Energy Block Grant, but I don't know if we're going to be able to accomplish that. In the area of transportation, we have seen a major shift within the administration to prioritize such transit, high-speed rail, and walkable communities. Because of our work, Transportation Secretary LaHood now supports more funding going directly to cities. Our hard work with Small Business Administration, Karen Mills, and congressional partners helped enact a $30 billion investment package that is restoring the flow of capital to our nation's very important small businesses. An important element of that bill raised the maximum loan level from $2 million to $5 million. Our businesses needed that. We led the way, along with the tourism industry, in finally securing passage of the Travel Promotion Act. This law is estimated to help attract 1.6 million new international visitors, create over 40,000 new jobs, and generate $4 billion in new economic activity. On unfunded mandates, we have so far stopped the Federal Communications Commission from undermining our local management and compensation. And we have started to get the attention of EPA to slow down the ever-expanding list of unfunded mandates that fail to account for local priorities. So in all of these areas, your work through the Conference of Mayors has made a difference. But the outlook in Washington is far from rosy. If Congress and the administration cannot reach agreement on the debt pressures, they will increase to make even deeper cuts in domestic priorities, which only account for 12% of the federal budget. Think about this. The House just approved a 50% cut in Homeland Security grants for next year. If they will go after Homeland Security funding, what can we expect for CDBG, COPS, transportation, and other domestic priorities? We cannot let Washington just pass the buck and pay for years of inaction. And pay for years of inaction on the backs of the local property taxpayers, who also send their income taxes to the federal government treasury. So not only are they paying into the treasury, but they're also going to pay from the property tax. Washington needs to learn from mayors. During the recession, it was mayors who made the tough decisions required to balance their budgets. And it was mayors who worked with the private sector to keep the economy moving when so much of the recovery money went directly to states. The road ahead may be rocky, but I have great faith in my fellow mayors and this organization to continue leading by example. Moving forward, we are fortunate to have Antonio Villaraigosa as our incoming president. He cares deeply for the most vulnerable in our cities. And he is willing to push the envelope to continue our focus on the metro economies and on job creation. Antonio, we stand with you and will follow your lead. Our incoming Vice President, Michael Nutter of Philadelphia, has been a fighter for us from the day he became mayor. You have been my strong and supportive arm. Thank you so much, Mayor Nutter, for everything. You're the best. What can I say about Tom Cochran? Words cannot express my appreciation for all that you have done for me as president of this organization. I came into my presidency during a major recession, and the challenges for mayors and their constituents were great. Tom, your passion and unwavering belief in mayors has made this organization, without question, the best in the nation. By working together as steadfast partners, you and I never missed an opportunity to push the job agenda forward. And even at 3:30 in the morning, he's emailing me. He never sleeps. And of course, you know, there's time zone difference from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, and I never know where he is, but there he is, always on top of things. And I try to be very respectful of his time, so I watch for his emails. And so if it's 5 o'clock and I see emails falling into my inbox, then I'm calling him. I know you're awake because I'm getting emails. But he's always there. So I want to thank also the conference staff. Let me tell you, they're up there 24/7 working for us. They're hardworking, they've got great knowledge, and they're dedicated, and they give us so much insight into what's happening in Washington. They are a group of people who care very much for us and about us, mayors. Finally, to all of you, my colleagues, as you know, this has been a difficult period in my life. With the loss of my husband, David, your love, your kindness meant the world to me. You helped me through this time. This conference is a family. I love the work. It is a mission and a passion. Coming here and to be embraced by your kindness, your thoughtfulness, and your caring helped me. And the work that we do is purposeful, meaningful, serving our people, and it has been good medicine for me. We support each other in time of tragedy, whether personal or civic. We promise and promote the successes taking place in each and every city. And at the end of the day, we give each other the moral support needed to push harder, to think anew, to innovate, and to never take no for an answer. So, my dear colleagues, thank you, and God bless you all, and God bless the Conference of Mayors. Our past president, Don Pasqualic, is here with us also. Don. I'm very pleased and honored to welcome to the Conference of Mayors the 55th mayor of the city of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. This man, when we met with him, was so kind to me. I was the only woman in the room. And he was so gracious. And, you know, not only did he extend his arm, he opened his arm. He extended his hand, he opened his arm. And so now when I see him all the time, I hug him because I'm a hugger. But when I first met him, not only did he extend his hand to shake my hand, he opened his arms wide. So, Mayor Emanuel, thank you so much. And he has worked closely with the Conference of Mayors for many years. In the Clinton administration, he helped create and implemented the Crime Act, which funded 100,000 new police officers. And as a member of Congress and then chief of staff for President Obama, he fought for cities' priorities such as high-speed rail and infrastructure investment. The U.S. officers and I had a wonderful dinner recently in Chicago with the then Mayor-elect Emanuel and former Mayor Daley. At that dinner, Mayor Emanuel said he would not miss his first meeting as the member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and he has kept his promise. So please join me in welcoming Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Just do me one favor, don't tell anybody I'm kind. I prefer that. It's a joke, you can laugh, don't worry about it. Second, it is, as a new mayor, and you did note that I worked with the Conference of Mayors in both capacities as senior advisor to President Clinton, as well as chief of staff for President Obama, but also as congressman from the north side of the city of Chicago. I worked for the Conference of Mayors, Mayor Daley. So I'm very familiar as being the congressman there, being what it is to work with the Conference of Mayors. And it was an honor to do that. I do want to say I have big shoes to fill. He was a great mayor whose passion and love for the city was felt every time you talked to him. And one of his closing comments to me as we talked one night for dinner, about a week before I got sworn in, was the importance of this organization to the job you do as mayor. And I want to be honest, as I knew it firsthand. And Elizabeth had noted it, because one of my responsibilities for President Clinton was to organize and help usher through the 1994 Crime Act and work directly with this organization, and no organization was more important to passing that historic legislation that set forth the policy to put more police on the street and get kids, guns, and drugs off the street. It was built on a simple strategy: 100,000 community officers, the assault weapon ban, tougher penalties as related to repeat offenders, and getting kids an activity to do that required them to be in a safe and adult-supervised activity so they weren't on the streets between the hours of 3 and 6, where 2/3 of all juvenile crimes occurred. And it was at that moment in time, from 1994 forward, that the country has seen, year after year, a drop in violent crime. And it was because of the Conference of Mayors working with the President, and some people may remember, at least I do at that point, the first attempt at passing that bill actually failed in the House of Representatives, and 2 weeks later, it finally got the bipartisan votes it needed to pass that. And at that time, this organization, working with the President, working with congressional leaders, changed the course of crime strategy here in the country. And it's that organization that did it. And you can literally, at that point, I mean, if people remember James Q. Wilson and other sociologists have written, they said we had saw a 30-year increase in violent crime in America. And at that time, they were talking about, you're just going to have to get used to it. America was going to have to adjust to that. And because of the leadership of this organization, those mayors that, Mayor Daley at that time, who had a strategy, working with a cooperative White House, implemented that strategy, passed that law, bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate, you have seen actually a rapid decline to the levels that we haven't seen since the 60s. And it was, I think, not the only, but a very high point for the organization, and clearly one in which our public service, all of our collectively, made a difference in the people we represent, be they mayors, congressmen, and president of the United States. With that, all of us clearly are facing the same challenges. Safety of our streets, the strength of our schools, and the stability of our finances. Nothing, all of them, we're all learning from each other, as we did this morning at the education program that was done there, how to deal with the challenges we have, where we're accountable directly to giving children an education and making sure we have a trained and educated workforce. I was at the dinner, actually, that we had in Chicago. That was my first, actually, I would say, baptism by fire, because Mayor Daley left me the bill to pay, and I wasn't even mayor yet. Nothing like hosting 10 mayors and getting the bill. So I can say that now that he's gone and he's no longer the mayor, no. But one area we discussed that night was infrastructure. And I had discussed an idea that both Tom and Elizabeth had asked that I would bring up here. We all face, and I think obviously the needs, as talked earlier by Siemens executive, is that without our infrastructure, we can't grow as a city, whether that's in the energy space or moving people from their homes to their place of work conveniently and quickly. And I think it's a critical piece because, as I said when I ran for office, I don't create jobs. I create the conditions for jobs to occur. And those conditions are the roads, the bridges, the mass transit, the water system, the electricity in the sense of the infrastructure there. This is one of the longest period of times where Washington hasn't passed a major infrastructure bill, the highway and resurfacing act. Hopefully when they're done with this process as it relates to the debt limit and finding the necessary cuts and sources of revenue, they will turn their attention to an infrastructure bill. One idea that I had proposed at the dinner and then was asked to talk here about was the idea of the infrastructure bank, which President Obama had put in his first budget and was there. But as they start going and start to debate a possibility of reauthorizing the infrastructure bill, how to bring forward, I think, an idea that we as mayors can do that would be more than just rely on what the infrastructure bill has in the past, which is a gas tax. And although that revenue should stay there and is there, there's this whole debate, and this is similar to the '94 Crime Act, trying to put together two ideas into creating a new idea that brings the parties together, which you will have a better chance of passing. And that is, corporate America, as you know, wants to repatriate their foreign profits. A little north of $200 billion of American companies are overseas. They would like to see the rate drop. It would happen in 2005 with the claim that it would bring jobs. It didn't. The administration has pushed an infrastructure bank, a Rebuild America job account, where you can then leverage those resources to do critical infrastructure. Usually on a 10-to-1 or a 9-to-1 ratio, you can leverage them. And everybody is loathed, obviously, to raise the gas tax. So one idea, and I'm working with, talking to a former colleague of mine in Congress, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut, represents the New Haven area, is that if you lower the rate from 35, let's just say to 10 or 15, in the repatriation of corporate profits, the revenue that is raised from that lowering, whatever it is, would then fund specifically the infrastructure bank. It would not go into the general account, but it would go into the new account for infrastructure. So you would guarantee, unlike the 2005 experience, where it went into the corporate coffers, it would actually fund the creation of the bank and the ability to fund critical infrastructure, be it mass transit, be it roads, be it water, and there'd be no doubt that it would create jobs. And not only the jobs directly in building, but we all know that if you have a good mass transit system, you have a good road system, Those are going to be critical decisions when a Siemens, a General Electric, or other companies are thinking of putting an operation, a facility, or a new office somewhere. And so the idea that I thought, there is going to be a proposal in Congress, Rosa's just working on it, but that we, when it's ready, take a look at looking at that idea as the infrastructure bill is being discussed, but how to fund a whole new infrastructure account or bank. I happen to call it a Rebuild America job account, because it is always about jobs. But it brings an idea that the corporate America and Republicans have been pushing, which is lowering the corporate rate, with the idea that Democrats, or at least the president and the administration, have been pushing, which is an infrastructure bank, and bring those two ideas together as a way to fund a whole new source of revenue for infrastructure, which is essential for all of our cities if we're going to continue to grow and meet the demands of our communities. So I appreciate very much the opportunity to come speak. I look forward to working with all of my colleagues. All of us from the state of Illinois met yesterday to talk about what we could do as a state, and I want to thank you, and I look forward to many, many years ahead to coming in, working with all my colleagues here and learning from all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ram, and thank you. When Mayor Emanuel shared these ideas with me and some of our colleagues in Chicago, I said, you got to tell the rest of the mayors about this idea. And so we need you as we move forward, Ram. It's great. This is all about jobs. And so I'm so glad to know that you'll be working on the same agenda. And we need to continue the work together, because it's important to our people and the cities that we serve. So let me now call on another great mayor, the mayor of New Orleans, Mitch Landrieu, for an update on an important meeting he is hosting next spring. We were in New Orleans this spring for the mini version. And let me tell you, Mayor Landrieu, the chair of our Tourism, Arts, Parks, Entertainment, and Sports Committee, gave us a snapshot, because this is a new sector of the economy that we need to raise awareness, and it is about the culture economy. Mayor Landrieu, tell us all about it.
Good morning, Mayor Cowles. Thank you so much, and thank you for your tremendous support of the city of New Orleans. I think that Ram got elected mayor of Chicago because God's got a great sense of humor. You see, he was a congressman, and then he was the chief of staff for the president, and 10 feet away from the most powerful office in the Western world, but he thought Ram ought to have a job that has real responsibility. It reminds me when the governor was here talking about the difficulties and the beauty of being a mayor, about a story about Cal Ripken, and I was kind of walking by the ballpark today and remembered that, Cal, the Iron Man, hadn't missed a game, been there, but no matter how well he did, he had this knucklehead in the third baseline just kind of giving him grief all the time. And he had enough of it after a while. Cal's not one for great emotion, but he went out and he grabbed the guy by the collar, ripped him out of the stand, and said, why don't you try it for a little while? Cal went and sat in the third baseline. And sure enough, the first ball comes to this new citizen that's there, and it goes under his legs and just goes by him. The next one comes right at him, and he misses, and the next one's a pop-up. And, of course, the guy drops the ball. So Cal walks back out there, and he said, this job isn't so easy, is it? And the guy looked at him, he said, Cal, you got this job so screwed up, nobody can do it. And sometimes that's what it feels like when you're at that community meeting that then Mayor O'Malley talked about. But I can tell you, I'm thrilled to be here, of course, on the dais with all these fantastic people. Mayor Blake, the city looks fantastic. Thank you so much. Mayor Villaraigosa, we look forward to working with you and to all of you. And, of course, the comments that have been made previously by all the mayors, I wholeheartedly adopt. As the great city of New Orleans continues to try to resurrect herself, she owes much of what she's been able to do in a very short period of time to the largesse and to the great faith and to the support of the American people and particularly to President Obama and his staff, who have just been incredible in reaching down. And of course, Elizabeth, the Conference of Mayors, have done an unbelievable job of coming down and actually rallying the rest of the country to the notion that we're all part of the same. And I can tell you from traveling internationally that it's really important that we are able to rebuild, as Ram talked about earlier, the infrastructure, because our moral authority internationally is questioned about how we can spread democracy abroad if we can't rebuild ourselves within. And so it's left to the mayors to try to find a way to do that, because as wonderful as rhetoric and talk is, I like to remind people, as I have found in the last 402 days of being the mayor of the city of New Orleans, and I know all the mayors share this, that cities is the place where hope and rhetoric has to hit the street. The words have to turn into something that's meaningful, and that as Congress continues to debate, trying to find a way for the country to be financially sustainable, which of course all is important to us, you know, it would help to remind them that you cannot cut your way to excellence, and you cannot shrink your way to victory. And we have to find a way to be financially healthy and to have the resources that we need, as Darrell has told us, to invest in the infrastructure that's really important. And of course, Mayor Couch, that leads me to the very subject that you wanted me to talk about. I served as lieutenant governor before I became the mayor of the city of New Orleans, and one of the jobs of the lieutenant governor was to take care of the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. And at that time in Louisiana, and you know our famous story about our food and our music, but culture was viewed in a very narrow sense. Generally, all of you that run for office, you probably got the same question that I get. Mr. Mayor, if you had to choose between, you know, the museum and the fire department, who would you choose first? And of course, all of us have come to learn that that is a false choice. And one of the ways that culture has been viewed is as kind of a soft thing, kind of an off-budget thing that did not really mean a lot to anybody else. Well, one of the things that we decided to do in Louisiana, something that Mayor O'Malley did here, was start to count things, right? Let's just see how much culture is worth. And what we found in Louisiana is that culture means business. And what that means is that when you actually count it as a cluster, an economic development cluster, you begin to find out that the business of culture generates more economic impact than the business of a lot of other things. And so first we had to define it. And so when we did that, we defined it broadly as art, music, historic preservation, tourism, sports entertainment, digital media, film industry, restaurants and food, et cetera, et cetera. And all you need to do is walk around this wonderful area where we are, and you understand that the city of Baltimore gets this in a big way. Chicago gets this in a big way. Los Angeles does. Philadelphia does as well. But what we have never done is counted and showed up with the numbers. But the numbers in Louisiana, for example, will get you someplace like 144,000 people in the state of Louisiana. 12.5% of the jobs that we have are all related to culture in its broadest context. It's a $10 billion industry. And so it's not just a lost leader that attracts the Siemens to come in because we have a nice opera or because we have a nice museum. It is, in fact, an economic engine that provides tax revenues that can then help build infrastructure, build energy systems, help support police departments, help support fire departments. And so in an effort to bring this issue to the fore, when I was a lieutenant governor, I created something called the World Cultural Economic Forum, which is in fact patterned after the World Economic Forum in Davos. But the specific focus is to focus on how we can drill down and to do the things that are necessary to make culture a better business. Because if you think about it, when you're building the oil and gas industry, or while you're building the aerospace industry, or whatever it is, what do? We have to have training. So the curriculum in the schools has to reflect that. When you have tax policy, you have tax policy that incents it to grow. When you have zoning issues, you have zoning issues that reflect it. We really never thought about that in a specific sense as it relates to culture. And so in May of next year, I'm calling together the mayors of the world to the city of New Orleans. So that can be the meeting place, the international meeting place, to have the discussion of where culture intersects with business. This is a very powerful tool for mayors to use, because what I would ask you to do today is to begin to identify the businesses in your city that are there from someplace else where there's foreign direct investment. And you can use this meeting place to discuss with them not only the culture of business and the business of culture, but how to draw federal direct investments to your city and use the city of New Orleans as the meeting place for that. We had a mini meeting there which we hosted right at our Jazz Festival. Our Jazz Festival is a place where 400,000 people come from around the world. It has a $250 million economic impact, 800 jobs, 800 businesses are supported by that, and that is a manifestation of the economic impact that can come when you put things together. And so I commend it to you for your consideration as another arrow, as another tool in your toolkit to make sure that the jobs that are necessary to produce the value that is needed to support police departments and fire departments and the tough things that we do actually make sense. Cities are the places where hope hits the streets. We're the ones that are called upon to make it happen. And as Ram said, and I think he says so eloquently, we're the ones who have to create the conditions for the private sector to grow. We think this is a great idea. We commend it to you and invite you back to our fabulous city. So God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch. Mayors, we have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that we can take back and really make a difference in our communities. Let me just remind you and encourage you all that the mayors need to go to the water taste testing booth and cast your vote for the best tasting city water in America. Here are the 5 finalists, you guys. Albany, New York, Denton, Texas, Pembroke Pines, Florida, Racine, Wisconsin, and Rochester, New York. You have until noon on Sunday to cast your vote. So remember, do that. This concludes this morning's opening plenary session. Thank you so much. We've got much work to do yet. So have a great experience today. We'll see you at the next event.